I was there at the beginning of INA. I'd seen the whole history, the rise and the fall of INA. But it was not a fall, it was a metamorphosis into even better.
People felt European. It was the dawn of the European era at that time. And it needed structure. And this is why we did it.
Wolf Singer was the most pronounced initiator of now it is the time that we move. From then on, we stopped talking and did things.
Because there was this other structure, ENA, European Neuroscience Association, which was a single-member society, which means you were an individual member at ENA. So you had two memberships. You were a member of ENA and you were a member of the National Society. And ENA became less and less important while the National Societies grew up and became stronger.
At that time, we started to realize that more Europeans were going to the American meeting than to the European meeting. And that created a bit of a panic. We were very lucky to get Helmut Kettermann on board because he was convinced that we have to give us a one-time chance to get going.
Because what we wanted was just restructuring and harmonize overall the neuroscience activities in Europe. And this was not done before because we had member societies that were not collaborating at the same table. And this was our first goal.
The other bold action was that Kettermann said that we can't use a professional congress organizer when we are so small. We had also to be much more professional.
So this was really structuring platforms that could be attractive for our community to get together and to stay together and to generate a critical mass that could raise neuroscience in Europe.
I mean, there were anxieties about this. You know, would people come? Many of us had a belief that this was so obviously needed that it couldn't possibly fail. But then that should have been the case with the European Neuroscience Association meetings beforehand. So could it be made to be different?
Kettermann's idea was to electrify the meeting in a way that hadn't been done before. And one should be aware of that. He took personally, as a director of his institute, clear risks of an economic failure. Because the ENA didn't have the resources to, no buffer. And if the meeting in Berlin failed, he would have been sitting there with a debt that I know he said he had no idea of how he should cover.
We had a scenario of 1,000 where we would have really a major loss. We had a scenario of about 2,000 where we just were breaking even. And then we had a scenario of 2,500 where we are in a comfortable zone. And people were really skeptical whether we would get 2,500 people there. In the end, it was 4,000.
I think the willingness of all these societies through their presidents to join this venture brought along with it a kind of missionary enthusiasm, encouraging people to attend, such that when the numbers started registering for the Fens Forum, we realized that even though we had a space that was much bigger than we'd ever used before for a meeting, it wasn't enough. And Helmut Kettermann, I remember, had to hastily arrange a marquee that had to be put up in the grounds of the hotel so we could have posters, because there were so many free communications and so many posters all squashed into this space.
Which was awful because it was July, it was hot, everything was cramped, and people were just, I mean, there were just too many people for that space. And but on the other hand, nobody expected that, so people kind of coped with it in a way. During that event, we didn't feel anything. We were so completely under stress during that time because we had organized it, basically. There was no professional organization behind it.
We were very young and we were just trying to make this happening with our time, our resources. I think that the excitation in those days were fantastic.
And I think at that moment, there was a feeling, there was a buzz and excitement. This really could work. And the numbers then drifted up and up, you know, to 6,000 plus over the next 4 or 5 forums.
That period was really the starting of Fens. So it was full of enthusiasm because we were all engaged in a sort of a pioneering activity.
It very quickly established itself on the calendar as being not only a European meeting where European neuroscience was being showcased and where networking and collaborative interactions could be formed, but a truly international meeting as well. So I've been able to see how this grand experiment of establishing a federation has had its growing pains and has begun to consolidate, and I now feel is through adolescence and is a mature organization which provides real value to European neuroscientists.